Hello everyone. Cram the Exam looks at every single aspect of your English speaking exam with the exception of speaking. We have a look at the use of English, the reading, the listening, the grammar, the vocab, absolutely everything. The thing that we don't have a look at is the speaking, which is why I'm going to use my Facebook page and my YouTube channel in order to help you develop your speaking skills. One great way to improve your speaking skills is, unfortunately, rather boring, and teachers generally don't like teaching it because it is rather boring, and as students it's rather old school and you don't like doing it, but nevertheless it is a really, really important thing, and that is vocabulary lists. Studying vocabulary lists in particular areas. And if you have a look at my Facebook page a couple of weeks ago, you'll see that I prepared a vocabulary list for the topic of the family. So if you get a question on family, straight away you're thinking of a much wider vocabulary than the obvious vocabulary the examiner will be ready for. So if you think of something out of the box, then the examiner straight away is a little bit more interested, listening to what you might say and hoping that you're going to give the examiner a lot more than just the basic standard answer. The other thing that you can do, apart from vocabulary lists, is study simple questions that are bound to come up in the oral exam, because in the oral exam you're going to have questions based on the topic areas of the course books that you study. So all of your course books, whichever one it is, whether it's Gold or Ready For or the Expert Series or whatever it might be, the units are all more or less the same in terms of topic area. So you know you're going to get a question of those topic areas. But one thing I'm going to do today, apart from the vocabulary lists and apart from the topic areas, is also to study the questions that you might have in every single part. And there is lots of resources out on the internet which give you access to these questions. So I'm going to have a look at part one question, part one of your oral exam, which is the introductory question that you might be asked in order to help you settle down and for you to start speaking English. These questions are easy questions, but that doesn't mean that you have to give easy answers. What you have to do is listen to the question, identify the main points in that question, and then give a fantastic answer to the examiner about the question, so the examiner is left in no doubt that you really know what you're talking about. And the question that we're going to have a look at today is it easy to meet new people where you live? Is it easy to meet new people where you live? Two key factors to this question. First of all, easy to meet new people and where you live. Now, I know I shouldn't have to say that, but it's important to break down the question because sometimes in people's excitement, particularly in exam conditions, you don't break down the question, you just answer one part of the question, you don't answer the other part of the question, and all of a sudden you're losing marks. So there's 2 points to this question. Is it easy to meet new people? And is it easy to meet new people where you live? Which gives you two sets of vocabulary to think about. One, meeting new people, and secondly, where you live. So straight away, that gives you lots of different areas that you can show off your vocabulary skills. Whether it's character vocabulary about local amenities, vocabulary about IT issues, vocabulary about relationships, vocabulary about money, and of course, town vocabulary and prepositions. All of these things come into play in answering this simple question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer this question in a number of different ways using different parts of different vocabulary groups in order to give you an idea of how you might be able to answer that question, and then in order to help you think about how to answer other speaking questions. Now, two important points to make before I do that. First of all, positivity is important. Positivity is important. If you go into the examination room, it's not an examination room, it's not a doctor's surgery. If you go into the room where the exam is being held and you are negative and the answers that you give are negative, then you're going to lose marks. It's a psychological thing. The examiners want to hear happy, lively. You can be nervous, you can be scared, but you've got to be positive. If you're negative, then this unfortunately has an impact on your exam score. So positivity is important. Second of all, the truth isn't important, although it is helpful. For example, in this context, where you live. If you live in a village, the examiner doesn't know you live in a village. You can answer the question as if you live in a city, or you can answer the question as if you live somewhere else. The idea of this question is not to get the truth. You're not talking to the police. What you're doing is you're aiming to show off your vocabulary skills. So, although the truth might be helpful because it's easier to talk about things which are true, if you know that certain areas, because you've been practicing these questions, if you know that certain areas are difficult to talk about, for example, village vocabulary is more difficult than town vocabulary, then you don't have to tell the truth. All you have to do is show the examiner your range of vocabulary. So positivity is important, but the truth isn't, although the truth is helpful. Okay, so getting down to the question, is it easy to meet new people where you live? As I said, there is a number of areas that you can talk about. Character, vocabulary, local amenities, IT issues, relationships, money, town vocabulary, and prepositions. So, is it easy to meet new people? Yes. Remember, positivity is important. Yes, it's easy to meet new people. People in my area are friendly. They're easygoing. I am outgoing. I am extroverted. I like going out and I like meeting new people. And the other people in my area are also very open people. So it's easy to meet new people. So not just yes, but the reasons why the answer is yes. Also, if it's easy to meet new people, this is the modern world. We can talk about IT issues. So we can talk about meeting new people online, meeting people as opposed to meeting people offline. You can talk about social media, social networks, how Facebook, how Twitter, how Snapchat, etc., all help you meet new people. If you want to go a little bit old school, you can talk about local newspapers, local magazines. You can summarize the situation saying that people are easily contactable, as opposed to in the past where you had to stand by a telephone and hope that someone else was standing by a telephone. You can go into the discussion about relationships, making friends, building relationships. Is it hard? Is it difficult? Of course, you've said it's easy to meet people, so making friends and building relationships is easy and it's enjoyable and it's something that you enjoy doing. So remember the positivity aspect. We could talk about money aspects. So, for example, if it's the situation where you don't have lots of money to go out to town and go to various different places, museums, cinemas, theatres, etc., to meet new people, you can talk about meeting people in the local area, whether it's if there's any local areas near you, whether it's the park, whether it's a shopping mall, or where there's any area which doesn't involve spending money, but is easily accessible for all people, for your peer group. You can, of course, talk about where you live. So you can talk about, and this is the second part of the question, where you live. So you can talk about where it is that you live, but not just saying I live in Warsaw or I live in Poznań. You would say I live in north, south, east, west Warsaw, or you would say that I live north of Warsaw, south of Warsaw, east of Warsaw, west of Warsaw. You start to use the range of prepositions: close to, far away from, nearby. You can, if you're familiar with any idiomatic expressions, a stone's throw away, for example. So I live a stone's throw away from Warsaw. We can talk about, of course, the type of place where you live: village, town, city, districts, neighbourhoods, and so on, so on. So there's a whole range of vocabulary which is waiting there for you to use. You can also talk about, and this draws the two things together, where you live and whether it's easy to meet new people. You can talk about local groups, youth activities, if there's lots to do, if there are plenty of activities, if your town is a young town or whether it's an aging town, and of course how that influences the ability to meet new people. So by listening very carefully to the question, what seems to be a simple question, which of course could be answered with yes, it is easy to meet new people, This is an A1 answer. What you need to do is start giving people B2, C1, C2 answers, which means that you've got to put yourself out there, you've got to be prepared, you've got to know the vocabulary, you've got to listen to the question carefully, and you've got to be able to talk about the question using different areas of vocabulary because you've prepared, because you've practiced, and because you follow my Facebook page where every week we're going to be looking at a question like this, so you quickly get into the habit of how you look at a question and which vocabulary groups you could use, vocabulary areas you could use in order to answer that question. Okay, so in summary, there's a lot of information that I've given you in this podcast. To go over the main points. 1, listen to the question carefully, identify the points it's trying to make. Number 2, positivity is important. Number 3, the truth isn't, although the truth is helpful. And number 4, practice, practice, practice. Not only vocabulary lists, not only answering the questions, but also thinking about which vocabulary areas you can go into or use with every single question. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you're doing your FCE First or CAE Advanced exams and you're using the Gold series, the Expert series or the Ready For series, remember that you can study all of these online with my website, cramneexam.com.